platform exclusivity is one of those topics I thought we were going to get away from in the modern and next gen of consoles. But a recent news piece regarding the new Marvel Avengers game has brought this up, and for today we're going to discuss why platform exclusivity is bad and why we're seeing good signs of this practice hopefully going away in the near future. So the big news last week involved Marvel's The Avengers game, the one that is going to be coming out on multiple platforms and is currently getting a lot of buzz both positively and negatively surrounding its design and some of the implementations of it. But the big thing that was announced was that of one of the many Marvel-related characters who are going to be in the game, Spider-Man is going to be platform locked to the PlayStation version of the game, with the Xbox and PC versions not getting access to that character. Now, at the time of this recording, we don't know if this is a lifetime lock, if it's, a 6-month, 12-month exclusivity deal, anything like that. But it was also revealed that there's additional bonuses, including community features and bonus rewards for playing on that version. And, of course, it's got a lot of people up in arms over the practice. And platform exclusivity is one of those concepts that really should have died out over the last 10 years. Originally, the idea was simply there from a hardware and kind of business perspective. Many of the early consoles and platforms were different in terms of their architecture, what kind of gamepad functionality, etc. And this meant as a developer, you really had to choose what platform to put your game on. And trying to make a game work with the SNES gamepad would have been different than the Sega Genesis. This got even more complicated when we entered 3D, when the different platforms had very different control schemes. Again, something like the N64 controller didn't exactly feel the same way in your hands as the PlayStation. And of course, then we moved to the GameCube era, PlayStation 2, Xbox original, again, Xbox One, and all that. And it really wasn't until the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era that we began to see this kind of formal standardization of gamepad technology. And why, again, something like this still holds up to this day, and we're not seeing any more redesigns. And with that came this idea that it didn't necessarily matter from a playability standpoint what platform you were using. Now, of course, Nintendo continued to be the odd man out with the Wii, Wii U, and the Switch. But for the most part, buying a game on an Xbox platform means you're still getting the same experience playing it on a PlayStation 1, fanboy arguments notwithstanding. And this proved to be a very big turning point for what it meant to do cross-platform support and cross-platform releases of your game, going from console to PC and vice versa. Because we can now assume from a development standpoint that if you're playing your game on the PC, while you will have a keyboard and mouse, you can also have access to a gamepad. And this opened up the doors to making it more likely that games are going to be released cross-platform. And most importantly, it also meant that you could still enjoy these games regardless of what platform you were playing on. And this is a very big deal, especially for games released from Japan. And this is something that we've talked about before, that Japanese games and developers were very hesitant porting their games to the PC, and for the longest time, many of these titles were never ported. And if they were usually given, the very rushed port, or a less than optimized port, as was the case with original Dark Souls, and being released in such a state that it took a modder to release a mod that almost became standard requirement for the PC version of it. And now we can take a look at how many Japanese-based franchises are not only being released on the PC, but they're being released concurrently on the platform. And there have been the recent successes of the Yakuza games, Atlus's Persona series, and it's hinting that Sega is going to be doing a lot more re-releases, or even just cross-platform releases of their major franchises. And that is ultimately a net win for everybody. And why this recent discussion around platform exclusivity deals feels so out of place compared to the rest of the industry. because we've seen these deals before. One of the strangest examples was from, I think it was Soul Calibur 4 or 5, that the GameCube version had Link, the Xbox version I think had Darth Vader, and the PlayStation version had Spawn as exclusive characters. I may mix the PlayStation and the Microsoft examples up. And this wasn't just a case of a skin change or just changing the asset. They were three completely different characters, which I'm sure was very fun to organize fighting game tournaments around. And the problem with these kinds of platform exclusivity deals is that, one, it makes your game feel like it's missing for everybody else, and two, these kinds of promotions don't really tend to, I think, help convince consumers to buy that version. Because we're talking about, for a lot of consumers, they may only own one major platform. And telling them that the version they're getting is the lesser or weaker example just seems like a slap in the face. And there's already been talk of even more exclusivity deals with the Avengers game, which I'm not sure those are real or not. If anyone can confirm that in the comments below, let me know. But the problem with these kinds of deals is that ultimately it's not really going to help this game 6 months, a year or two out. It's just going to be seen as content that is locked that most people will not be able to get access to. And what's especially weird about this is that we are in that cusp of a new generation with, of course, the PlayStation 5, Xbox One X, and whatever they want to call it next, and things like that. And having these kinds of deals now just seems like a very weird way to earn extra money for a game. And what makes things very worse in this example is that the Spider-Man exclusivity deal, this is not a skin of a character. This is an original character for the game with its own moveset, abilities, functionality, etc. That is locked to only 1/3 of the versions of the game that are being released. And you have to be very careful with how you approach this as a developer, and especially as a publisher, that you're never going to make this sound good, no matter how much PR speak, marketing talk you want to throw at it. You are basically telling 2/3 or more of your consumers, tough, you're not going to get access to this. And this is why if you're going to do these deals, it's always better to say that there is a cutoff date, that this will be exclusive for the first month, or people who get this version of the game get access to DLC a week or two early, or a day early, whatever you want to say. Because when you are doing platform locks like this, ultimately you are hurting more of your fans and helping. Because the people who are already going to buy it for the Sony version or the PlayStation 4 or 5 version, they're already going to do it. You don't need to convince somebody who owns a PlayStation console to buy the PlayStation version of this game. But when you have these kinds of multi-platform deals like this, you really want to be as forthcoming with your entire consumer base as possible. And again, it's something that we're seeing Japanese developers take note of, with recent releases of, again, like the latest Dark Souls games, the Yakuza games, Persona, and etc. And that's only the start. We've already got confirmation that Yakuza 7 is going to be released on the PC, I believe, same day or very close to it. And I'm sure when we get more formal announcements around Shin Megami Tensei or the next Persona game, they're going to have PC versions as well. And that is a very important point for developers. And after this quick break, we're going to talk about another reason that platform exclusivity hurts, and why it comes back to bite the developers more often than not. And now for a quick shout out to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. Going forward, all Patreon supporters will get early access to our videos. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, link down below. If you're looking for more wisdom about game design, be sure to check out my latest offering of books, 20 Essential Games to Study, aimed for first-time developers and students looking for some inspiration for their upcoming games, and Game Design Deep Dive Platformers if you're interested in anything regarding 2D and 3D platforming design. They're both available in print, digital, and wherever books are being sold. As we've said, platform exclusive titles tend to do more harm than good when it comes for video game success, and one developer who has certainly learned to get around this and the benefits of cross-platform support is Sega. The footage that you're seeing is, of course, from Yakuza 6, and the Yakuza series have, in a very interesting turn, seen both a resurgence on the console and PC side in the last few years, with the Kiwami remakes of 1 and 2, the release of Yakuza 0, and then having them all being ported to the PC. As I said in the last part, Japanese developers for the longest time did not port their games to the PC. And I'm sure there's research and information out there that unfortunately I don't have in front of me at the moment on why. But the successes of games like Dark Souls, Monster Hunter, and Yakuza here, and even smaller developers like Nice with the Disgaea games, have shown that there is a market for these titles across platform. And the reason why this is a good thing is because this is the one aspect that helps developers the most. Platform exclusivity does not help the developer. In some cases, it doesn't really help the publisher. It helps the platform in question. By releasing these games onto the PC, or by having this cross-platform support, it does allow these games a greater chance at success. As we've said before, when it comes to major game releases and keeping franchises going, publishers look at game sales for obvious reasons. You don't want to support a title that only got 20,000 copies if you're expecting 2 to 3 million. But the problem for the longest time has been that for platform exclusive titles, you are limiting that game to only a quarter or even less than potential amount of people playing video games. And the differences between a cross-platform game and a platform-exclusive one can come down, or can really affect whether or not that series or that game can survive long-term. There is a very sole reason why cross-platform franchises like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Battlefield, and so on are guaranteed winners, or at least guaranteed to be profitable. Because, as we all know from Economics 100, the more people who can buy your product, the greater the chance you'll be able to earn money from them. And I can think of franchises in the late 90s, early 2000s that could have really have used that buff, or that buffer of having more platforms to be associated with it. For instance, Sharon the Wanderer, one of the first roguelikes that weren't in the classical style or the ASCII style, that was released in Japan. I think that was like 94, 95. I may be confusing my dates, but it was imported to the United States, or to the US, in the mid-thousands, and that was only on the GBA. And at this moment, we're seeing a PC port of the third game coming later in the fall of 2020. I can also imagine games like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts doing really well on the PC, especially with an audience of people who are used to modding and creating their own tools. And I know very well that would have done incredibly well, considering the success of stuff like Minecraft, Besiege, and other builder-focused games. Kerbal Space Program being another one. The point is that having your game be on as many platforms in the very best state that it can be ultimately is going to help the developer succeed more. And there's a reason why I said that last sentence. Because for the longest time, when games were ported from console to PC or vice versa, it was often considered a shoddy port, having bugs and additional problems to it. The NetherRealm Studios fighting games in particular were very guilty of this, especially with the first Injustice, that was left, I believe, with a game-critical memory leak that they never got around to fixing. Today, developers know that if you're releasing your game on the PC, people expect it to be as silky smooth or even better than it was on consoles. As again, we've seen with Yakuza games, with Dark Souls, and so on. The days where you could get away with a shoddy port or no port at all of a game are long gone. And as we've said, it's getting harder and harder to convince somebody to play your game. And purposely ignoring potential fans is not how you want to conduct business in today's market. And why this whole decision for the exclusivity deals with the Marvel Avengers game, is such a confusing tactic. Again, this could have worked 10, 15 years ago, but today, with so many people playing video games and so much of the market has grown, it's really seen as giving the middle finger to a majority of people who are playing your game. Now, if it was a limited time exclusive, or if you want to make it like, Sony consumers get it first, or they get a free version of it, okay, that's still a bitter pill to swallow, but most people get past it. But just literally saying, no, you do not get access to this because we say so, because you don't have the right console, is such a very bad marketing strategy. And supposedly, I know Jim Sterling talked about this and a few others, that there's also going to be exclusive costumes for Verizon consumers, for people who own Verizon Internet. And I'm sure there's going to be a Mountain Dew and Doritos promotion probably at some point as well. To wrap things up, cross-platform or getting your game out there to as many people as you can is critical in today's market, and we are even seeing indie developers do that as well. With games like FTL, Darkest Dungeon, Stardew Valley, of course, Five Nights at Freddy's, and so on, have made the port to other platforms. Even The Binding of Isaac, the game that Emmett McMillan famously said that Nintendo turned down for the Wii and Wii U because it was too violent, got an exclusive launch day edition for the Nintendo Switch. People all around have learned that the more opportunities there are for somebody to get access to a game is going to always be a net positive. Because you never know where fans are going to come from for your game. That was the whole thing about Stardew Valley. The reason why we didn't see Harvest Moon on the PC was, guess what? The developers thought there weren't PC fans of that kind of gameplay. And as we all know, that is entirely wrong, and now we're even seeing Harvest Moon ports for the PC, and probably people saying, is this a Stardew Valley clone? And for those of you watching this, again, if you are an indie developer, you should be looking at where is the market for your game. We've seen indie games, again, thrive on the Switch, but again, that bubble has probably burst by now. But don't think about your game as just a single platform. And even if you are making it for PC only or mobile only or anything like that, it's important to understand where the market lies for it. And can you port that game without causing too much trouble or without messing with too much of your design? If you can, and if you can do the research and find that there are people wanting this kind of gameplay or there's other examples not as good as yours, consider looking into those platforms. Now, and one topic that could possibly fit into its own video would be having cross-platform support on early access games. And this is something that generally you don't want to do as an indie developer, because it's going to become a nightmare in terms of supporting the multiple platforms while you're still developing the game. The perception of an early access game, as some people may not understand seeing it on PSN or Switch or XBLA, and of course the issues of certification on consoles as well. With all that said, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And are there other really good or notable examples of games that suffered because they weren't cross-platform? Or games that did go cross-platform, but it was a lousy experience. Let me know in the comments below. Check out our Discord and Patreon as well, linked down below. And come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Until next time, take care. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoy things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel linked down below, where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.